Thank you, Claire. Right, we're going to go straight into debate for this amended proposal. Who would like to speak first, please? Councillor Hartley.
Well, first of all, you need to ask to accept the amendment.
No.
I suggest.
No. Debate it first.
If it helps councillors, I'll just set out process on amendments because it is slightly different. So we have a proposer and a seconder to the amendment. The seconder has reserved the right to reply. We will go into open debate. Then the seconder has reserved the right and will speak. The original proposer, Councillor Riley, then responds at that point, okay. And then Councillor Copleston sums up at the end on that, and then we will go to debate on the amendment.
Thank you very much. Just dial me in when it's appropriate, Chair.
Can I remind all those speaking, you can only speak once and you have 3 minutes. So, Councillor Hartley.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to draw attention to Councillor Copleston's comments about the Community Grant Fund. You mentioned that most of the funds went to larger councils who have use of their SIL and all the rest of it. The criteria for the Community Grant Fund was set out very clearly. It's a points-based system to make sure it was completely transparent. There was no preference given to anybody who was a cabinet member or a councillor for a particular ward. It was very transparent. And one of the criterias that gave you extra priority was that you had match funding from your own council. So I think your point about other councils could have spent money on it, they can afford it. They did spend money on it. They were match funded for the majority of cases. That's why they were awarded the grants. And regarding the ward member grants, a few of us, I know me in particular, I waited until after that to see whether anything that I had supported wouldn't be awarded, so I could use my own grant. I had funded one group because they weren't applying for a community grant fund. So the rest I have reserved, and the majority of that is going to get spent within the next week. I think there are a lot of people who are waiting for things coming towards the end of a financial year, and that is all going to get spent probably within the next week or so. But the point about the community grants going to larger councils, I think is a bit irrelevant when that is actually the fact that they are larger councils who are able to match fund is what gave them the priority to get funded. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roper next, please.
Thank you. Scribbled a few notes whilst the amendment was being raised. Apparently Helson's getting too much money from community grants. Interesting that you should be saying that. You clearly don't like community grants very much on this. I struggle to see how you can have a scheme which is doubly subscribed with the community grant scheme and yet you feel that it is unnecessary. I think you just need to look around you at the moment at the strain which many organisations are under because they have experienced their own cost of living crisis to see how important it is for the district council to step up and to support in that way. So community grants, I think, are a very important area in which Broadland can help. The other thing which amazes me is this thing of basically doing away with the contingency provision within the budget. This fund, it sort of smacks of a cross your fingers and hope for the best type amendment, really, which is perhaps what you would expect from the party that subscribed to Trussonomics and everything else. It seems that this cross your fingers and hope for the best approach is because you seem to think Rishi's got a plan and that things are all going to magically get better. Unfortunately, I think the strains on our communities are here to stay, which again underlines the importance of the grants policy, and also in terms of the strains which could potentially hit local government finances. But again, I'm not particularly surprised to hear this sort of amendment. Let's do away with the contingency, say the Conservatives. It's the same Conservatives who this time last year proposed a budget that basically emptied the general reserves when it came to looking forward to the capital programme. So I'm not surprised that it's been raised. I think this amendment needs to be rejected out of hand, and we need to endorse the very robust proposal set forward by Councillor Riley, you will see on page 252, in terms of the inheritance for this council, that when we did the first cut of the medium-term financial strategy, it was projecting a £1 million gap. The hard work of this administration alongside delivering the community grants means that we have now narrowed that gap down to just £200,000. We've knocked 80% off of it. So the inheritance wasn't that great, Conservatives, and we worked very hard to correct it whilst delivering for our communities, and we will continue to do so. Reject this amendment, please, and endorse the overall budget.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Got Councillor Yousafzai, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say a few words regarding the community grants. The Taverham Village Hall applied for a grant, having been able to scrape together the same amount as the grant that they applied for, and they found it extremely difficult, as they had been for many years thinking of renovating the village hall, which is in dire need of one, by the way. They did apply for the £15,000 grant, and they managed to get that grant, and they've now renovated the village hall, and they've benefited from a totally new, brand new central heating system, which is far more efficient than the previous system, which was in dire need of replacement. Taverham, our parish, Taverham North, is not a privileged parish. It did struggle hard to get the monies together, but it managed to do it, and without the community grant, it would not have been possible for them to carry out their renovations as they have done. And I personally hope that for many years to come, community grant will continue, and the scheme to provide all parishes access to funds they wouldn't otherwise be able to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Starling, please.
Thank you. It's interesting to see the use of 2 years as the justification for low tax rises, because I look back at what was imposed 4 years ago when the Conservatives first took control, and they went for the maximum rise permitted, largely to fund an increase, a massive increase in members' allowances, not to fund grants that actually go to voluntary organisations. There seems to be a double standard here that says if the money is coming into our pockets, we will put tax up. But if it's going to local voluntary organisations, then we oppose it. That strikes me as being something that I'm quite willing to put on a leaflet to explain to voters about how the Conservatives behave at this council.
Thank you, Councillor Starling. Councillor Booth, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I must say, I'm looking forward to telling the Sproston Brownies that the Broadland Tories would rather that I had not been able to give them a large grant for equipment. I'm going to be looking forward to that. Also, I'd like to tell the Secretary of the Yare Boat Club that they should not have got their community grant to give them changing facilities, because that's what they're for. And also, very briefly, also remember that members' grants that are not spent, unlike under the previous arrangements, are carried over into that community grant. Now, we know that community grant was oversubscribed. Any money that's not used by members will be going into that next year and will increase it, so therefore it will do more good. I just cannot understand why the Tories would object to this. This is good community politics. And finally, to not have a contingency fund is just unbelievable. The fact that you think, as Councillor Roper said, everything is going to be shiny in the future is just ridiculous. Thank you.
Can I support everything which has been said by the administration? But given that refund has been mentioned twice, I've got to respond. I've got to respond. The first one is on the community grant. Yes, I've not spent it. I have got an application in, or I've received an application from an organisation, and it is okay to, that's it. The money members fund is used to support this organisation. But nevertheless, my criteria are a little bit harder than what the councils are, and I think this particular organisation will actually comply. The second thing is, I think if you said Reefham was a large parish or a large town, you know, looking alongside Sproston, Hells and Catton, even places like Rackheath, Spixworth, it is significantly smaller. As regards SIL money, it gets next to nothing on SIL money, next to nothing. So there's none there any to spend. And if you look at the application which actually came in, it's for a voluntary group who runs a music festival which raises a large amount of money for charity. And this, one of the major beneficiaries is a mental health charity, which is based at Rackheath. Now, this charity serves a lot of residents throughout the district, and for the benefit of many. And if you look at the terms and conditions of what town and parish councils can grant aid, it is not for people outside of the parish, and therefore it has to, a town council cannot actually grant aid these organisations. And so this is a very worthwhile organisation which benefits a lot of people throughout the district. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to come? Oh, Councillor Holland, please.
Yes, thank you. I've got a couple of things I'd just like to say, really. I echo the comments that people have made about the community grant funds, and I think this was a first round as well. So I would remind people it is for councillors to find applicants for that and to encourage them to comply with the criteria that are set. But I heartily recommend it. And I think the very fact that it was vastly oversubscribed actually goes to show how needed it is in this current climate. My other points would be about the availability fund, which I think is not, if I refer you to page 253 of your documents here, you will see that only 10 extra families in bed and breakfast temporary accommodation would cost us another £145,000. So it doesn't take much, does it, to see that that availability fund might well be needed. There's quite a huge range of things here that are potentially going to cost this council a lot more money that need to be factored in. The final point I would make is I remember somebody just said something about the economy picking up, which I'm afraid I find somewhat unusual, given that only this week it was confirmed that the country is in recession. So I think perhaps we should take that on board as well. My only other point I would make, which is really kind of constitutional, I guess, or organisational, but is if you are going to propose an amendment like this where we have paperwork that's applied, I accept that what you're saying potentially is that this is quite a minor amendment, but the fact is that it's going to affect, if it were agreed, it would affect the budget and affect the council tax. On that basis, if you're going to propose something that takes 4 pages of writing to be supplied by an officer team, I would expect it to be tabled with the agenda, as is the current budget. So I actually think that is inappropriate. So I'm sorry, but I can't accept these amendments for a range of reasons, and I'm sure we will be hearing more from our member about the reasons why we're proposing the budget that we have.
We have Councillor Bullman, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, perhaps you should have read the paper today. You would have noticed today that actually Andrew Bailey, the Governor of the Bank of England, is saying that the recession, to all intents and purposes, is probably over. And I think we would all heartily endorse that and welcome it. I would say to you, yes, it's very nice to be able to hand out grants to people. And of course, people will come forward and have good schemes that they can be supported. But you need to bear in mind, and we seem to have forgotten this is on the backs of increasing the council tax. Yeah. So you're giving with one hand and taking with the other. If you asked our constituents, would they prefer a lower council tax or a series of community grants or whatever, I'm sure they would choose the former rather than the latter. What I haven't heard of in any of the discussions so far, nor in any of the papers I've seen, is that we haven't seen how the efficiencies have been attacked to ensure that we didn't need to increase the council tax. I do applaud the fact that we're not drawing on reserves. I do applaud the fact that we're not actually going to diminish the services, but I don't feel enough work has been done on efficiencies to find a way of subsidising or paying for all those without increasing the cost to our constituents, because at the end of the day, they have to bear the brunt of it. Yeah.
Councillor Thomas, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say, looking online here, that the first Cultural Rainbows received £1,000 an award grant, which I think is a fantastic group, and I'm sure they'll make good use of that money. Just by what I've seen proposed tonight, I just think it'd be a shame that the ward councillor there would want to halve that and not benefit that group. I just think that's a shame.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to comment before? Oh, Councillor Empsall.
Yeah, for many years, Broadland was very well managed, very well budgeted. Everything was going well. We were an exemplar council in the whole country. And I feel we were prudent and we were careful. And I just feel that we need to continue that. We need to mitigate as much as we can the increases for our residents. And that's all we are trying to do. We are just trying to do the right thing for all residents.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Wymark. Would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, thank you. It's been a really interesting debate. There's been some very, well, I think some things that have been said have just been incorrect, frankly. Sorry, I haven't started yet, so you can't really criticise what I'm going to say, unless you've got a crystal ball that I'm not unaware of. However, when this group inherited the council, it came with significant reserves and no borrowing, which is a fantastic place to be when we look around the country. I'd say that there's not many councils in that position. Many are in very, very dire straits. We are not. So we inherited a good financial stable situation. I think it's really unfortunate that some of the councillors have misrepresented what was said by Councillor Cobblestone. I really do. It's very, very unfortunate. We shouldn't have a slush fund of £100,000 for something to just dip into. We should have reserves, which we absolutely clearly designate. We know where it's going. We just don't want to just pick something out of air when it suits us. In the past, when we've had budget meetings, the Liberal Democrats have never argued against the reserves policy. I don't recall there ever been an argument that we got it wrong, the things were in the wrong place and the thing. So I think it's really disingenuous to say that now. A lot of people haven't spent their grant. In fact, when I looked on Monday, I would say most of the Cabinet hadn't spent their grant. So all of a sudden, in the last couple of days, you've managed to spend your grant. Fantastic. Well, I'm pleased about that, and I'm pleased about everyone that's actually benefited. However, what I would say is, when this was introduced, this was very much a vanity project, really, because it was to level up with South Norfolk. Now, there's been lots of arguments in this place about why we are different from South Norfolk, as we should be. Everyone says, oh, we're a sovereign council, we do things differently. Absolutely right, so we should. So why was there this clamour to level this up all of a sudden, and actually it was totally uncosted in this year's budget, the year we're sitting in now? It was totally uncosted. So we've added, straight away, we've added £1.50 to the ongoing costs for all of our residents because of this £73,500. So before you look anywhere else, that's what residents are paying for. And I don't think that's actually equitable. The leader here referred to the 145,000, which potentially could be spent if 10 extra families go into bed and breakfast. I know this better than anybody. I fought for this project. Policy. I absolutely fought to get money put in place. I fought for buying Harvard Court, and actually I'm still disappointed that we didn't buy the 8th property, and I don't know why, because obviously it would have generated even more income for us.
Councillor Wymark, you've had your 3 minutes, I'm afraid.
Is that it?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Copplestone. Oh, Councillor Riley first, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, this amendment needs to be rejected for a whole range of reasons. One, I've just heard comments about slush fund and reserves. I seem to recall £20,000 being spent on wicker corgis. Where did that money come from? From which reserve? It came from a contingency reserve that the Tories actually endorsed and carried over into budgets after budgets. How much was in that contingency reserve? £100,000. So that's the fact of it, at risk of course sounding Nick Starling's irony klaxon, but there it goes again. We then moved to the actual funding for the community grants. The issue here was I was pretty determined to make sure that this was not an extra sum of money that would be called upon in reserves as an addition. So what I did, with the sanction of this cabinet, was put in some hard work with a 151 officer and officers that are sitting in this room today, towards the back there, on looking at the employment and involvement of consultants. There was a budget line I found in October which allocated 200,000 each year to consultants. So with the officers, we put in some hard work to work how we could bring that down, and we've brought it down to 125,000 a year. That money is better spent, 75,000 on the community and the projects that have been mentioned here today than on consultants. So it has absolutely nil effect on this revenue budget. Or the only thing you would actually do is save on consultants into perhaps a general reserve off of what you're talking about. And the reality is it's much better going into the hands of a community where it's actually needed. And also I think just the line on what we're provided here on ward member grant fund is, you're looking at it entirely the wrong way. Sometimes in wards, there may not be the need at that particular year for it. That's why it goes into the community grant scheme where there is a demand and therefore the money gets used where it's needed. So it's there if it's needed. If not, fine, it goes into community. It should be there for any ward member to call upon when they need it. If they don't in that year, fine. So you're looking at this in completely the wrong way. And I'd just like to say on the 5.5 million, which you committed to in your cabinet in February, it's here, here's the table, I brought it along just in case, it actually states that to fund the capital that you'd endorsed over the previous year, you would now require 5.56 of general reserves, which is the total amount of general reserves. In February, you made a decision, it's minuted, and the table is very clear.
I'm sorry.
We have reduced that to 4.75.
Councillor Riley, you've had 3 minutes. Thank you. Councillor Copplestone.
Thank you very much. I've heard a lot about community grants and how poor people are feeling in their community, especially from Councillor Booth, who only spent less than £500 on his brownies. He could have spent £1,000 on the brownies, but there, I'm not suggesting we cut the member grants I'm not suggesting we're cutting the member grants completely. I'm just saying we revert back to £500. And as Councillor Bullman said, there is a choice between offering grants or giving our taxpayer a reduction in their council tax. And we, the Conservatives, choose to reduce the council tax. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to a recorded vote, please, on the amendment, which is as stated. A, to replace recommendation 2 with the following: that the council's demand on the collection fund of the 24-25 for general expenditure shall be 6 million. Is it 6 million? 6.4 million, and the special expenses shall be 98,000. To replace recommendation 3 with the following: the band D of level of council tax be increased by £1.50 to £131.41 for general expenditure. Can we go to recorded vote? This is for the amendment. Okay, so you have to vote for or against the amendment, please.
Thank you, Chair. Please could members indicate if they're voting for, against or abstaining. Councillor Orber.
Against.
Councillor Baby.
Against.
Councillor Beadle.
Against.
Councillor Berry. For. Councillor Booth.
Against.
Councillor Bowe.
For.
Councillor Brennan.
For.
Councillor Bullman. Councillor Catchpole.
Against.
Councillor Clancy.
For.
Councillor Copplestone. Councillor Crotch. Councillor Douglas. Councillor Eden. Councillor Empsall. Councillor Goodman.
Against.
Councillor Gurney. Councillor Harkley. Councillor Harvey.
Against.
Councillor Holland.
Against.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Creamy Gouverneur.
Against.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Laming.
Against.
Councillor Leggett.
For.
Councillor Mear.
Against.
Councillor Murrell.
For.
Councillor Newstead.
For.
Councillor Nurden. Councillor Riley.
Totally against.
Councillor Roper.
Against.
Councillor Starling. Sorry, L. Starling. Councillor N. Starling.
Against.
Councillor Thomas.
Against.
Councillor Tipple.
Against.
Councillor Toval. Councillor Ward.
Against.
Councillor Yusefian.
Against.
And Councillor Wymark.
For.
So the amendment is lost with 22 against and 18 for. Therefore, we will return back to the substantive item on the table.
Okay, now we will now debate the original proposal. Councillor Murrell.
Thank you. Given that we've, in the last item 7.5, by Councillor Riley's own admission, reduced the council tax burden by 180,000, can we therefore utilise that 180,000 to reduce the tax burden on our parishioners?
Councillor Riley, do you want to? No. Anybody else? Councillor Roper.
Already had one go tonight, but I'll talk about what an excellent budget I think this is. I think this puts it in Broadland in a much more robust position than we were at the beginning of this budget process. And once again, I refer people to the table on 7.2 and ask them to reflect on what it would do to our medium-term financial strategy if we went in, as we were in October, facing a £1 million gap. You can see Councillor Bullman raised about where is the evidence of efficiencies. I think it speaks for itself, the fact that that budget gap has reduced by 80% since October, how hard this administration has striven to achieve efficiencies within the budget process. We take it very seriously indeed. I think one thing to be particularly welcomed in this budget is the movement of funds to the capital, to reserves for the capital programme. I think it's acknowledged that the capital programme is going to be one of the key drivers of how we reduce costs in the future by sensible investment. We've already talked about two excellent projects very recently, one of which did begin under the previous administration, which have served to reduce our revenue spend around housing. I think that is something which we look forward to continuing with the item which we passed earlier tonight. I look forward to seeing how the community grants, dare I say, will be spent in the coming year to benefit our residents. I also look forward to how our customer experience work, which has been funded by Capital and has we've restructured the funding for that, how that will start to bear fruit for all of our residents in terms of how they get a better service from Broadland District Council, and also how that will help us to save costs. I think this is, as I say, a budget which puts us in a much stronger position to deal with the challenges of the future, and I absolutely support it.
Councillor Starling.
With my ONS hat on, I was disappointed at the last ONS that there was a blanket vote going one way, but no reasons given. And that was the perfect opportunity. It's the perfect opportunity to ask the questions because we had cabinet members there. It was a perfect opportunity to raise concerns, to ask questions about elements of the budget. And those opportunities were not taken. And then we were foisted on us tonight. It's sort of, with the comments that have been made about how this is at such late notice, you know, we have systems in place for monitoring and looking at budgets and questioning officers, questioning cabinet members, and those opportunities weren't taken. And then it's just like, oh, here's the trick, here's the rabbit from the hat, ta-da, look, we're doing this. I mean, you know, sometimes it's a good job my dad isn't here, because he'd be disgusted at this sort of behaviour, because it's the sort of thing he used to hate. As Councillor Clancy commented earlier, that's the sort of stuff, you know, looking for consensus, and this is about trying to drive from the back seat. I was leader of the opposition once, for 3 years, and not once did I propose an amendment to the budget, because I believed it was the right of the party that was running the council to set the budget that they were going to have to implement. And I'm not once in those 3 years did I organise and vote against. We may have abstained on issues. We had particular issues about certain elements, but this I would have found, I couldn't justify it to myself, and I couldn't justify it to my electors, playing these sorts of silly games which are intended to obviously get a headline in the EDP, but actually our residents would not respect us for this. We're talking about a £5 increase, and we've got people in this room who are going to vote for a massive increase of the county council budget, and they will do that quite happily, and they will forget everything they've just said here about looking after residents. We've got a county council ignoring things like the minimum income guarantee. They care so much about the poorest that they want to scrap that. So let's just think about, you know, stop trying to drive from the back seat, because you end up getting nowhere. I'm a little bit disgusted in this, quite frankly.
Councillor Bullman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like you to go on the record that I have, from the outset when there have been budget discussions, said that I would not endorse an increase in council tax without there being commensurate efficiencies to look for ways in which that could be avoided. I would note actually that was also mentioned quite regularly at overview and scrutiny, and I would also note that the budget actually was passed at overview and scrutiny by the chairman's casting vote, which to me indicates that there is not strong support for the budget proposals. I don't think we are trivialising this at all, because as far as I'm concerned, our constituents are concerned about how much money they pay. They really do want to see that they get value for money, and quite frankly, I think that comment was uncalled for.
Councillor Weinert.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say that any opposition has the absolute right to challenge what is being put forward by any group, and that's absolutely the right thing to do. And year in, year out, I've always seen this to be the case. I mean, when the Liberal Democrats were the opposition, you put forward amendments, you put forward potential changes. The Greens did too last year. That's not uncommon, and it's not unreasonable to do so. So I think that's absolutely, you know, fair and reasonable to do so. So I just wanted to say that. I do think there are things within this budget which are questionable, you know, and I take the point about overview and scrutiny, and that wasn't a particularly good meeting. However, this is a different meeting, and we can have different arguments if we wish to. I just think with the fees and charges here, I do question. We're on the one hand, when we're not, I know we're not talking about the delivery plan now, but in the delivery plan, we're saying, for instance, we want to increase the number of brown bins by 500. However, what we're doing here, we're disincentivising people on direct debits. We're putting up the direct debit by 7.92%, and we're, you know, which is you know, £4.5, but we're only increasing the non-direct debits by £1.70, and we're saying there's a £5 standard fee. Well, is that actually sort of full cost recovery? I mean, is it full cost recovery? Probably not. Probably not. I mean, the other bits in there I can agree with, but I would say on that point, it really is a point which we really need to think about. Are we really trying to incentivise people to be greener? I'm not sure we are. I'm not sure we are. We shout and scream about a climate emergency, but actually, when we look at doing more recycling, we actually prohibit this. We actually sort of disincentivise people. So I just think it's things we need to look at. But actually, this place, people should and must be able to challenge. And this is the place to do it. And I don't think anybody should argue with that, really. This is the right place. And I think that's only fair and reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Gurney.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm an elected member of Norfolk County Council, and that is in the members' declared interests. If you look, I have declared that, and I just feel that I shouldn't let Councillor Starling get away with a comment that he made about the MIG, because we have never mentioned at county scrapping it. That is incorrect. Thank you.
There no further. Councillor Catchpole.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say the obvious, really, that had there been an increase in government grants commensurate with inflationary pressures, then the council tax rises could be avoided. I'd also like to say that the budget that I see is in line with the plan that the partnership have and have outlined another place on the agenda. But I was really pleased to see how speedily the improvements in green projects are being implemented in line with our climate emergency declared by this administration as soon as it was possible to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Copplestone.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to completely disagree with what Councillor Catchpole has said. Councillor Riley said earlier that we had a 4% government settlement, which is completely in line with inflation. And when tomorrow Ofgem lowers the energy price cap, we will see inflation fall. Also, this administration has completely ignored the survey of council taxpayers on 5.5 of the papers. Only 44% of the people polled decided that a £5 increase to council tax was acceptable, and the others weren't so keen on such a large rise. So we stand with what we say. And we do not support your budget and council tax rises. Thank you.
Councillor Yusufian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I just clear up what inflation means? Inflation is a rate of change. Something that's gone up from £1 to £1.25. When inflation is zero, it will still cost the consumer £1.25. It's a rate of change. It doesn't mean prices are coming down or things are getting better. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, I'm going to pass on to Councillor Riley before the vote.
Could you just remind me, Chair, how much time I've got?
Sorry, so
half an hour would be great.
Councillor Holland, you're first.
All right.
You have 9 minutes.
Thank you. Well, as we've already heard at some length, the headline figure for us is that we're proposing an increase to the maximum amount permitted. That's just £5 a year. The government originally set its own funding at 3% increase. It then increased it to 4% after representation from councils, the LGA and the District Councils Network, amongst others. But it also funded all councils with the expectation that they will increase their council tax to the maximum figure. Virtually every council in the country has done so. There are very few, I think it amounts to about 8, that have not done that, for whatever reasons they have chosen. The projected budget at the outset for us was showing a potential deficit of nearly £1 million. When we're talking about efficiencies, we have had to find numerous efficiencies to be able to reduce that to balance this budget. And it's not over here. You know, we've got another 4 years to look at this. So projections over the time are that this will continue to increase. And I can only echo Councillor Yusufian's point that inflation, when people talk about 4% inflation, it negates the fact we've already had 8% inflation. So our 4%, it's a compound figure effectively. And I think we need to remember that. It's not just a flat figure we're looking at. The total amount of income from tax receipts is around about 14 million, and the rest of our funding comes from government in the relation to housing benefit payments and so on. So budget assumes pay increases to the national local authority rates, which Broadland is committed to, and that's not locally determined. That in itself will increase our expenditure without us having any say over it whatsoever. whatsoever. Food waste costs. Unfortunately, the previous administration, I understand why they did it, and I get the fact that we all want food waste collected, but this government had said they were going to roll it out. They were going to provide capital funding. They're now telling us we can't have it because we've already started doing it. So that's about £1 million we've lost automatically. We've then got the problems that we're paying our revenue costs for this, which won't get back until 2026 when the government finally start paying it back to councils. So there's a significant amount of money that's been spent, regrettably, almost unnecessarily in my view. I will just bring you to one other thing, is that failure to invest in opportunities for revenue income in this council, particularly in a financial environment when interest rates have been historically low, really low, has contributed to the position Broadland finds itself in now. This is something our administration is fighting to rectify, and I say fighting advisedly, as interest rates show no sign of returning to those historically low rates. I'll give you an example. Our partners in South Norfolk borrowed 20 million at 2% just 2 years ago. That's not something we're going to be able to do. An interest rate of 5.7% is significantly higher and represents a fundamental difference in what you have to pay back on those loans. So we're fighting to make sure that we can provide the services that we need to do. We're fighting to make sure that we can put aside money where we can develop revenue from investment, which is what many other councils have already done. I would also like to point out that those historically low rates ended following the financial turmoil that arose from that brief episode, disastrously brief, but fortunately brief, episode in October 2022 when Liz Truss decided to set up a new budget. It's been made clear by the LGA and multiple councils across the country, drawing on reserves is not a sustainable solution. You can only spend reserves once. You need to find a way to make sure that the revenue matches the needs of the council. Increasing costs of homelessness, the fact that the local housing authority monies that come to pay for various things are not uprated. They haven't been uprated since the 2011 rates. We're still receiving them at funds on 2011 rates. LHA needs to be uprated to the 2024 figure. It's a huge difference. We are lucky that this council has managed to do what it's managed to do. But the scale of pressures that councils have been forced to absorb, which is almost 30% in real terms reduction in core spending power over the last decade, means that financial resilience in council sectors is, as the LGA has pointed out, at an all-time low. This administration has worked hard to ensure we remain financially prudent and responsible, and we will continue to do that. And I would like to thank the officer team for their hard work and the support they've given us to enable us to present you with what I consider, and I think many of us on our side will say, is a financially prudent and sustainable budget. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to Councillor Riley, please.
How long do I have to?
You have as much as long as you like, but
thank
please
you.
try and keep it brief.
This time tomorrow. I'll try and answer some of the points as well, and I do appreciate the leaders' comments, because one thing we are as a cabinet is a collegiate cabinet, and we are well in tune, and we work as a member-led cabinet. We answered a couple of the points that have been raised here. I think the comments around 4% just demonstrate a real lack of understanding about inflation, what it does. When the two council tax freezes were implemented under the previous administration, 23-24, the staff increase alone came to £600,000, over £500,000. Now that was much needed increase, which is settled out at national levels, because inflation had really damaged their wages, and in actual fact we'd had below inflation settlements prior to that. So that was much needed by the staff, but it's got to be paid for. The government settlement is actually only just over 300,000. So where on earth do you think the money's coming from when you've frozen council tax for 2 years? Clearly it's got to come from somewhere, hence the £1 million deficit opening up. Also, what we've tried to deal with here is the appalling situation. I was quite shocked when I found it, actually, of the minute of the Cabinet were committed general reserves, 5.5 million to the capital spending. When I was first elected as a councillor, the reserves were actually at 10.5 million. They were over 100% of what you require on your revenue. That was disproportionately too high. So there was surpluses being mounted up, put into reserves, and as effectively not invested. Hence, this council, and I do give credit to South Norfolk in this regard actually, did invest, did borrow at the appropriate time, and do have investment income which is covered under proper risk that comes in to help supplement their revenue spend. This council in the past simply didn't do it. And now there's been capital build up, agreements for capital and general reserves repurposed. We've had to tackle that. So immediately, with the 151 officer and the team, we've repurposed, as you know, some reserves, 1.1 million to help go towards what the government recommend we need, which is a 10% minimum in general reserves as contingency in case we get revenue problems during the year. And we've done that. That was the first thing we did ahead of this budget. But also, if you now look at the situation, instead of the February report on the Cabinet, 5.5 million, you see in today's capital recommendations, we've been able to reduce that to 4.27 of general reserves. So we've reduced that by those means and those methods. And the 250,000 this revenue we are putting towards the capital is a necessity. That's actually been quite a hard decision to make, but it's good financial corporate management which has been applied here by the partnership and together with the officers to cope with the deficit of a general reserve being totally committed to, which should never be in any council. Yeah. And if it was said at the county, there'd be an outcry all over the place about it. So in regards to that, that's been now reduced, and you'll see it on page 271, 9.5 to 4.27. We've reduced it down. And we're also getting a minimum in there to cover for contingency, which is a responsibility of any prudent council to do. If, however, we'd not done that, and we've had to do that because of the situation we was facing on the reserves to help cope with the capital issue that we've got, and it's not sustainable, then we could have actual fact this year, with all the work that we've put in, despite what we faced on inflation, we've been able to have a council tax freeze. That's never been proposed by the amendment we just had, but we chose not to do that because we knew that further down the line, a year down the line, 2 years down the line, we'd have been an almighty mess. We'd have a capital problem still, a general reserve problem still, and also a revenue problem. Instead, the revenue going forward shows a minimum imbalance moving forward. Still a lot of hard work to do over this year. So I was really shocked by what I found from February, even more shocked today with some lack of understanding around that, and some ownership, I have to say, in terms of previous capital council's cabinet in regards to this. And I have to say, once again, I totally commend this budget. We are proving that this administration knows what it's doing, and we are collegiate, and I commend it to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Right, we're going to go to a recorded vote on 7.6 of the revenue budget and council tax. The recommendations are on page 244 of your papers. Can we take them on block, please? And Claire, if I can ask you to do a recorded vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Orber.
For.
Councillor Baby.
For.
Councillor Beadle.
For.
Councillor Berry. Councillor Booth.
For.
Councillor Bowe.
Against.
Councillor Brennan.
Against.
Councillor Bullman. Councillor Catchpole. Councillor Clancy. Councillor Copplestone. Councillor Crotch. Councillor Douglas. Councillor Eden. Councillor Emsall.
Against.
Councillor Goodman.
For.
Councillor Gurney. Councillor Hartley. Councillor Harvey.
For.
Councillor Holland. Councillor Johnson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Karimi Gouvenou. Councillor Kelly.
Against.
Councillor Laming. Councillor Leggett. Councillor Mear.
For.
Councillor Murrell. Councillor Newstead. Councillor Nurden. Councillor Riley. Councillor Roper. Councillor L. Starling. Councillor N. Starling. Councillor Thomas. Councillor Tipple. Councillor Toval. Councillor Ward. Councillor Yusefian. And Councillor Wymark.
That's carried, Chair, at 22 to 18.
Thank you. Right, we're just going to go for a recorded vote for 7.7 capital strategy and capital programme, and it's on page 266 of your papers.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Auber. Councillor Baby. Councillor Beadle. Councillor Berry. Councillor Booth. Councillor Bowe. Councillor Brennan. Councillor Bullman. Councillor Catchpole. Councillor Clancy. Councillor Copperstone. Councillor Crotch. Councillor Douglas. Councillor Eden. Councillor Empsall. Councillor Goodman. Councillor Gurney. Councillor Hartley. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Holland. Councillor Johnson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Karimi Gouvenou. Councillor Kelly. Councillor Laming. Councillor Leggett. Councillor Mear. Councillor Murrell. Councillor Newstead. Councillor Nurden. Councillor Riley. Councillor Roper. Councillor L. Starling. Councillor N. Starling. Councillor Thomas. Councillor Tipple. Councillor Toval. Councillor Ward. Councillor Yusefian. And Councillor Wymark.
That's carried 39 for, 1 against, Chair.
Thank you. And the final vote on this section, you please know this is not a recorded vote, so it's just a show of hands. For the Treasury Management Strategy Statement on page 283, I would ask you to raise your hands for the recommendations, please. Yep, unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, we come to 7.9, Council Plan 24 to 28 and Delivery Plan 24 to 26 on page 315 of your papers. I invite the Leader to present recommendations from the Cabinet.
Thank you. We've done quite a lot of work on this plan over the time of the last few months since we've come into the administration. We've held several workshops and we've looked at several options that are available. Everybody, I think, has put their effort into it and everybody seems to be fully understanding of what it is we're trying to achieve. It's essentially a conglomeration of those things that we stood for when we stood for election. It covers the things we particularly want to be able to do that meet our primary concerns. One of those, which we keep referring to and refers to on many occasions, is housing supply, and the other is protecting our environment. The overarching objective that we have is putting people first in a cleaner, greener Broadland. Some of the items are concerned with how we provide statutory services, some around areas we believe need improvement. Within the financial constraints of rising costs, inflationary pressures and potential for reduced income from investment, the plan and its underlying delivery plan represents the best we can be. I really hope that you wholeheartedly support this plan. It has been worked on along with the delivery plan in conjunction with the working on the budget, and I can wholeheartedly recommend it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I presume you're proposing?
Yes.
And Natasha's seconding. You wish to speak now, Natasha? Okay. Right. I'm going to open the floor to comments and questions, please. Councillor Laming.
Yes, thank you. I was very pleased to see this plan come out. I think it fully reflects the aims of this new administration. It outlines some very positive plans to support Broadland residents. I'm very happy to support it, and I would like to thank all those who've put so much work in to put this document together.
Thank you. Councillor Wymark.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say that there's a lot in this plan that I really like, I must say. But we talk about ambition, and it doesn't feel ambitious enough. I know people say it is. It doesn't feel bold. It doesn't feel ambitious. You know, this council has declared a climate emergency. What have we really got in here for a cleaner, greener Broadland? There's no money for that. There's no money being set aside to do anything. We talk about the retrofit accelerator, and various terms that we've used before around the green grants, etc. It's the Norfolk Warm Homes Fund, something we've had for years. It's not something new. I'd like to see some new things here, some really bold, innovative ideas, and I don't feel they're in here. And I think that's a real shame, because they could have been. I think, you know, I know we had a workshop and that was really useful. However, I think if in the spirit of collaboration, I think we could have had much better meetings, myself and the leader and others, maybe to talk this through, and we could have come up with a better plan. So unfortunately, I don't really feel that it fits the brief. It doesn't fit the brief for a new administration, for a bold and ambitious administration. And that disappoints me. There's no argument about putting people and communities first. That's absolutely why every single one of us walked through the door. And I mean that is every one of us, whether we be elected members or officers. That's the reason we walk through this door. But as I say, we need to be radical. If we're really going to sort of set out our stall and say that we are going to be ambitious, be radical, be different. I don't feel that in here. And that's a real shame, because I think it could have been. And I really do feel that it could have been. I mean, once again, you know, the leaders made comment about the fact that we're missing out because we went ahead with rolling out food waste. Absolutely, it was the right thing to do. We did it. There's a cost to that. There's a cost to doing the right thing. The Cabinet Member for Environmental Excellence, he's made absolutely clear. He's got no plans to roll out anything additional in environmental space unless central government tell him to do it and actually give him the money to do it. That's not right. That's not the way things should be done. You should put your best foot forward if you actually truly believe in something. So it's about, I say, unfortunately, I don't support this because it could be much better. And I'd like the opportunity in the future to actually work upon this with the leader and maybe do so, make it so. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murrell.
Thank you. I concur with Councillor Wymark. That was my comment, the lack of ambition within this plan, looking at the sustainability and resilient economy elements of that. There's no drive or ambition there. When I questioned it over the scrutiny around things like enhancing the Food Innovation Centre, I was told that this was business as usual. And a lot of the programmes were going to be just business as usual. If you continue on business as usual, it will fail. You have to have something that is ambitious and will help drive the economy and be better for our residents.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Clancy next, please.
Thank you. It's a laudable aspiration, without any doubt. I think it's something we would all support. But I think I think to highlight, it's lacking in actual detail and how are we going to overcome the problems to actually deliver these right homes in the right places. We've got nitrate neutrality, we've got habitats, yes, we've got high interest rates, and we've got a lack of affordability. The plan talks about right homes, right places, but unfortunately, I think unless we have some positive mechanisms in place to actually deliver on this,
I don't think we're going to be able to do it. And I would rather see in there a little bit of more detail in the sense of how we're going to do it. Just to go back to the budget, I spotted that the new homes bonus was considerably higher, the proposal in the budget, than what it was for this financial year. I think it's going to be extremely difficult to hit those kind of figures. And I think, again, it's been mentioned in the spirit of collaboration. I mean, it'd be sensible to try and find ways to actually break through this bureaucratic nonsense, what is stifling the ability to deliver homes at all levels, and to actually put in some measurable, meaningful targets in terms of housing delivery. Because if not, we just won't do it, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Emsall.
Yeah, I feel like I looked at this and I was looking to see what the innovation was, and that just didn't have any. And in fact, to me, some steps were backwards steps. The key performance indicators on page 349, for instance, the recycling rate target was 60%. Now in this, it's 51%. That is a backward step, considering a climate emergency has been declared. It should be, if the Conservatives were doing 60%, we should be doing 75%. But instead of going up, you've gone down, and I just don't see that. Obviously, the retrofit has come up again in this Expand and Deliver the Retrofit Accelerator programme. That's just words again. We've looked at retrofitting, what the business case would be. You can't retrofit. It just doesn't add up to any kind of council budget to do that. So by saying expand it, you can't expand it. You've got to have a business case, and there is no business case for that. This is just the Warms Home scheme. There's no mention of the visitor centre project for the country park. There's no aspiration to look at that and turn that into a proper thing for Broadland. We've got 148 at Country Park, and we've got no aspiration to do anything exciting with it. But on here, you've got delivery of the new waste depot. Well, that's not new, and it's not exciting. It's not. That's just something that was going to happen anyway. So that shouldn't even really be on this. That should have been being sorted. So this is all just weak. There's just nothing exciting about it, and there's just nothing looking at it thinking, yes, wow, I'm glad we're doing that. And I just think it just doesn't say anything to me.
Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chair. There is things in here that are, as you say, business as usual. And if you want to hear to some of the examples of them, if we take the Food Innovation Centre, we have had 115 food and drink businesses supported. That's 28% over target. There's 550 members signed up for the food cluster. That's 175% over target. 17,000 cluster events and workshop attendees, 70% over target. 18 start-up business supports, 20% over target. 29 drink and businesses created to new market products, 480% over target. And 42 food and drink businesses created to new firm products, 68% over target. So that is business as usual. It sounds pretty good to me. I just don't accept that business as usual is not exciting, because it is. We're delivering. The food centre's delivering. And sadly, Councillor Davies can't be here, but the funding for Green Agenda, I did get some notes from him. A council-wide approach to the Green Agenda is being embedded across the organisation. So all decisions consider environmental impact. Projects which support the council's net zero target are encouraged, and across the organisation we are working to lower our carbon emissions. If we take the Broadland Country Park, for example, the plans to build a new visitor centre there is an intrinsic part of the project for design to deliver no carbon within its operational lifetime. Budget isn't allocated for net zero purposes specifically, but rather is an assumed part of costs and is considered a non-negotiable when delivering this type of scheme. Now, Councillor Emsall has got a thing about the Broadland Park, seems to want to turn it into some sort of Broxham Barnes theme park, which is what he said at ONS, and it is not what the Broadland Park is for. It is meant to be an environmental park, not a theme park. So the idea of developing it, we're developing it not with what people want. If we try and overdo it too much, we'd end up with no volunteers. They don't want it to be a theme park, which is what he seems to want. Thank you.
No, you've already spoken. If there's no other comments from anybody who hasn't spoken, Councillor Starling, then Councillor Beadle.
Sorry, I don't want to keep disagreeing with Fran all night because actually I like Fran. Used to deal with him at work as well. Well, sort of, and people speak very highly of him. So I don't wish to sound like I'm being just anti-Fran or anti anyone. But a couple of things here. About being ambitious. I said, where's the money? We've just had a debate about the fact that the feeling from that side of the chamber is that we're spending too much money. And now it's, where's the new money? It's like me having a conversation with my wife saying, where are you going to cut our broadband and TV package? And then coming over to me and saying, why haven't we got Netflix? You know, it's like, you want to be ambitious. We're trying to be ambitious within the budgets, but where's the money? We can't produce magic money. We can't borrow our way out of trouble. We can't thrash our reserves so that there's nothing left for the future. Council is trying to be ambitious, it appears to me, within the parameters of coming in and finding that hidden in the minutes of our meeting in last February was that we're spending all the reserves. And we've had to manage that and diminish that and, you know, to reduce the call on that. So, you know, I commend this for being as ambitious as it can be, given the fact that, like we have heard from across the chamber, we have to be thinking about how we provide services at a good and fair rate for council taxpayers who don't want to pay too much. So for that reason, I commend this.
Councillor Beadle.
Thank you, Chair. Most things have been said, so I'm not going to repeat them. But just to come on the depot, when I was on the council in the 90s, it was deemed inappropriate, not fit for purpose then. And just to give you an example, to get a lorry into the workshops there, you have to take the air out of the suspension system so it can get through the door. And it's been like that for decades. And the existing building is actually a very green building. It is very green. Indeed, it's green on the inside because there's ivy growing from the outside inside the building. Now, when you've got a building that old and that decrepit and it was deemed inappropriate 20 years ago, it is time for a change. And, you know, and to actually get the best out of our contractors, we need to provide appropriate premises. Thank you, Chair.
There's no further comments from anybody? I would like to go to Councillor Hartley, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I just want to say I think it's a little bit in poor taste to put words into somebody's mouth who isn't here. Councillor Davis does have ideas, and I think it's in poor taste to make those kind of comments when he's not here to put forward any alternative. The man has had to attend a family emergency. You shake your head, but you did. And I think it's in poor taste to say that he's not here to reply.
This is not a discussion. This is for Councillor Hartley to respond, please.
Thank you. I made a comment and I stand by it. I don't think it was in good taste to make comments regarding Councillor Davis's position on something when he is not here to affirm it. Second of all, the comments regarding having more involvement with the plan. Can I ask how many times the previous administration involved the opposition in the plan? 0 is the answer to that. This is more backseat driving yet again. I think you have to accept you're not in power anymore. We are. We have a different way of looking at things. This is probably why there's going to be a little bit of a clash of ideas.
you seem to be against funding brownies and whoever else. We're not. There are different positions on things. I thoroughly commend this plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go to the leader to respond, please.
Well, thank you. I'm afraid Nick's just stolen most of my thunder, to be perfectly honest. I'd written down all these things I was going to say about the fact that we've just had this enormous discussion about the costs of things and where we're going to find the money from and why we shouldn't be putting up council tax, and he's beaten me to it. So I'm not going to repeat all of that. Oh, I think I just did, didn't I? Sorry. But what I am going to say is this is ambitious within the limits of the funding that we have available. I would point to things like when we're talking about the Retrofit Accelerator programme. The idea behind that is to take what money is available, prove that we can do those things so that when the government funding becomes available, we are ready to say, we can do it, we've done it, here's our examples. We can only do that with a small amount of money because that's all we've got. So I don't think we're being unambitious, we're being realistic. We are also trying to look at things, when we're talking about housing, what I'd love to be able to do is build a whole load of houses that we can rent out and get some revenue from. That'd be great, wouldn't it? We'd all want to do that. That's what some councils have done. That is our project to start with. We want to do that. We've got to build up some funds to be able to do it. We've already set in place Broadland Living, which is there to help us produce houses for people to rent and live in and bring a return to this council. That's what we need. We need return on investment. We are not going to be able to do anything with £14 million of council tax coming in every year and that's it. It doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. So this is our starting point. There's a lot of stuff in here we would like to do and there's lots of things we can build on from here. We have to start at this point where we have the money. We will then work our way up and it can take 15, 20 years. I sincerely hope that this council continues to follow this programme and we build those revenues coming in so that we can fund these things going forward for the next generations, because that's the really important point here. So we have done the best we can with what we've got available. We are fulfilling the manifesto commitments we made and I would urge you all to support that. And I take the point that Councillor Wymark has said. I know he supports a lot of these things and he's absolutely right. I do fully accept. We all come through the doors here because we want to help our communities. We just sometimes have a different way of going about it. So if you wouldn't mind, I would really recommend this plan to you and I hope that you'll find yourselves able to support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Right, recommendation to Council is that the Council approves the adoption of the Plan 24-28 and Delivery Plan 24-26. Could I ask for a show of hands? And those against?
18, Chair.
Thank you. Recommendation has been passed. You're not able to vote.
No, I can't because I had unfortunately to go to the toilet. I think it's disability discrimination, given my circumstances. However, I was advised I can't vote, so I'm not going to.
Okay, so it's 22-17. Right. Number 8, Council Tax Resolution 24-25. Councillor Riley, would you present the report, please?
Thank you. Yeah, the report is on page 2 of the supplementary, and word is pretty clear there on what we need to do. So I simply move the report, page 2, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Holland. I'd like to invite members. Oh, Councillor Holland, do you want to speak now or reserve the right? Okay. Would anyone like to make any comments, please? No? Okay. Thank you. Councillor Holland, would you like to say
Well, I
anything?
can only reiterate what Councillor Riley has said, really. The recommendations are what they are. I think we've had the main discussions on this, so I can only ask you to go to the vote for this, please.
Okay. Councillor Riley, do you wish to say anything else?
No, it's a very factual.
Thank you. Right, recommendations, page 4 of the supplementary agenda, if you want to refer to that. They're rather too long to list here, so hopefully you've read them. We're going to go for a recorded vote, please.
Can we take the point separately, please? Recommendations. 1, 2, 3, number 1, 4 and 5. Does that help?
Which one, sir? 3 and 4.
1, 2, 3 all together, and 4 and 5 together.
Does anyone have any objections to that? No? Okay, we'll go for recommendations 1 to 4. I said 4. 1 to 3.
1, 2, 3.
And then 4 and 5. And then 4 and 5, okay. Okay, Claire, would you like to go?
Yeah, recommendations 1, 2 and 3. Councillor Orber.
4.
Councillor Baby.
4.
Councillor Beadle.
4.
Councillor Berry.
Can I just ask councillors not to talk because it is sometimes quite difficult to hear? Can we go back to the start again, please? And if I could ask for no discussions, thank you.
Councillor Orber.
4.
Councillor Baby.
4.
Councillor Beadle.
4.
Councillor Berry. Councillor Booth.
4.
Councillor Bowe. Councillor Brennan. Councillor Bullman. Councillor Catchpole. Councillor Clancy.
4.
Councillor Copplestone. Councillor Crotch. Councillor Douglas. Councillor Eden. Councillor Emsall.
4.
Councillor Goodman.
4.
Councillor Gurney. Councillor Hartley. Councillor Harvey.
4.
Councillor Holland. Councillor Johnson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Karimi Givenloo.
4.
Councillor Kelly.
4.
Councillor Laming. Councillor Leggett.
4.
Councillor Mear. Councillor Murrell. Councillor Newstead. Councillor Nurden. Councillor Riley.
4.
Councillor Roper.
4.
Councillor L. Starling. Councillor N. Starling.
4.
Councillor Thomas.
4.
Councillor Tipple.
4.
Councillor Toval. Councillor Ward. Councillor Yusefian.
4.
And Councillor Wymark.
4.
That's 37 for, 3 against. That's carried.
Thank you.
And then recommend.
Pardon?
Can I just clarify something? 3. The county and police precepts be noted. 3 against that.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, we go to recommendations 4 and 5. Claire, would you like to start again, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Orber.
4.
Councillor Baby.
4.
Councillor Beadle.
4.
Councillor Berry. Councillor Booth.
4.
Councillor Bowe.
Against.
Councillor Brennan. Councillor Bullman. Councillor Catchpole. Councillor Clancy.
Against.
Councillor Copplestone. Councillor Crotch. Councillor Douglas. Councillor Eden. Councillor Emsall.
Against.
Councillor Goodman.
4.
Councillor Gurney. Councillor Hartley. Councillor Harvey.
4.
Councillor Holland. Councillor Johnson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Karimi Givenloo.
4.
Councillor Kelly.
Against.
Councillor Laming. Councillor Leggett.
Against.
Councillor Mear.
4.
Councillor Murrell.
Against.
Councillor Newstead.
Against.
Councillor Nurden. Councillor Riley.
4.
Councillor Roper.
4.
Councillor L. Starling. Councillor N. Starling.
4.
Councillor Thomas.
4.
Councillor Tipple.
4.
Councillor Toval. Councillor Ward.
4.
Councillor Yusefian.
4.
And Councillor Wymark.
Against.
That's 23 for, 17 against. That's carried, Chair Rowan.
Thank you. Right, we'll now move on to the monitoring officer's report. I invite the leader to present the report, which is at page 363 of your papers.
Yes, thank you. I just draw your attention to the fact that primarily this report deals with the ordering of the Constitution. It's not about changing the content of the Constitution other than one small minor change. So we're really looking at putting it into a logical and readable format so that there is nothing contradicted, so when you're trying to look at something it makes sense and you can find whatever you need in there. So that's the first thing. The bit that we are adding, of course, is the bit about the outside bodies, because at the moment we don't have that in the Constitution, and it does help if you know exactly what it is you're signed up for. So we're adding that in. And other than that, there is no change to the content. The only other items that we need to bear in mind are the changes to the outside bodies, which have arisen for a variety of reasons, and I think you'll have seen them in the report there. So all I can say is I'm recommending to you that we actually accept these changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder, please? Councillor Riley. Wish to speak now or reserve the right? Councillor Riley, would you like to speak now or reserve the right? Yeah. Okay. Do we have any comments from councillors, please? No? Okay. I'll go to Councillor Riley. Do you wish to say anything?
No, I forego that privilege.
Okay. Councillor Holland, do you wish to sum up?
No, I think it's fairly substantial, very easy to understand, I think. I don't think there's really anything else to say, so I would just propose we go to the recommendations. Thank you.
I'm going to take the recommendations en bloc. All those in favour of the recommendations, please raise your hand. Thank you, that looks unanimous. Right, going on to outside organisations. You've had reports from Councillor Catchpole and Councillor Royal on two outside bodies. Thank you for those. Questions from members? I would invite Councillor Brennan to ask his question, please. You have 2 minutes, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First question is, when Broadland District Council agreed to purchase 50% of this building, the Horizon Centre, along with South Norfolk District Council, it was on the premise that all our costs, i.e. Broadland, would be offset by the sale of our offices at Thorpe Lodge. Would the leader please explain to the council what progress has been made and when we might see the sale of Thorpe Lodge?
Thank you. I think I'll hand over to Councillor Roper, whose portfolio this actually comes under, if you'd like to explain where we are with that, Councillor Roper.
With pleasure. Thank you for your question. As members will be aware, Thorpe Lodge has and continues to be advertised for sale. In line with planning policy, the site had to be advertised for at least 12 months in its current use before any alternative use could be considered by planners. We have had a number of viewers of the site, but all with a view to looking at alternative residential use rather than the previous usage. Our agent has suggested that in order to obtain the maximum proceeds for the site, it would be advisable to market the site for alternative use with pre-planning advice, as this would reduce the risks to potential purchasers and increase the incentives. Work has been focused on drawing the pre-application submission together, which will be submitted imminently. However, alongside this, officers have also been exploring opportunities with brownfield funding and have recently submitted an application and are working with Broadland Growth Limited to see if this is a potential site to take forwards. Officers continue to explore other brownfield funding opportunities as well.
Councillor Brennan, do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, it would be nice to hear the leader answer a question once in a while, but notwithstanding that, could you also please advise Council what the ongoing costs of keeping the site secure are, please? And thank you.
Thank you for that question. The ongoing cost of Thorpe Lodge is around £70,000 a year, and that's due to the listed building elements of it. Because that's now empty, we no longer pay business rates on the site, So we're just looking at the security aspect of it and some lower running costs, and it's around £70,000.
Councillor Brennan, you have a second question, I understand.
Thank you again, Chair. Would the leader please tell the council if there is any intention to install a prominent sign on the south-facing aspect of the Horizon Centre? Doing so would proudly proclaim to Broadland residents and the general public that this centre is now the home for Broadland District Council and South Norfolk District Council. I can't imagine that Jaguar Land Rover, who've got their site just on the entrance to Broadland Gate, would have a bland grey building without any sort of signage showing out to the public. Thank you, Chair.
I tell you what, I think I'll give the council a real treat and I'll answer this question myself. No.
Thank you. We'll move on to motions.
Sorry, just to follow up, Chair, if I may. Yeah, just a quick follow up. Could the leader then please explain why not, rather than just a no?
We'd need planning application. It will be hidden probably by the new building that's going up on the other side. And quite frankly, it's quite expensive and it really and truly would just be another form of vanity project. It doesn't benefit the residents at all.
Thank you. We're going to move on to motions, please. I'm going to invite Councillor Clancy to present his motion. Councillor Clancy, you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to speak to the motion. This council notes the excellent news for Broadland residents, businesses and communities that the government has assessed the business case for including the economic, environmental, transportation benefits for building the much needed Norwich Western Link and granted funding of £231 million, which is approximately 85% of the cost. The council resolves to reaffirm its strong support and commitment to the Norwich Western Link and requests the leader and managing director writes to Norfolk County Council urging them to progress the planning application as a matter of urgency to avoid further and costly delays. I'd just like to say that basically this council has consistently supported the Norwich Western Link since its original inception in 2014. Me personally have supported it for 30 plus years, and if it had been delivered when the NDR was delivered, the costs would have been phenomenally less. We have suffered from years of inertia, years of delay. There's only one problem with the Western Link, it's not built. And in reality, it's all of us who live on the Western Fringe parishes. We see the constant blight of the communities who live in the parishes. We see areas like Gossey, we see areas like Ringland, Western Longville, constantly chock-a-block with vehicles trying to get through. Again, many of us have travelled through those routes, specifically Ringland. If you get a van coming through there at the rush hour, it actually grinds to a standstill. All of us, including the chairman, we've seen the impact of flooding in the area, and we've seen all the things which basically a Western Link would actually resolve. And no, I'm not going to say resolve, would considerably help. It would help the local environment. It would help, there's phenomenal amounts of mitigation gone in. There's strong support, resident support. There's strong support from local businesses, the emergency services, and there's institutional support. Unfortunately, various lobby groups have continually damaged this project by the continual delays and inertia, which is resulting in costs to the economy, costs to the environment, and also inconvenience to the kind of residents we've all been talking about this evening. I commend this motion to this council.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy. I understand Councillor Copplestone, you're seconding that motion. Would you like to speak now? Okay. Right, we go to debate, please. I've got Councillor Starling first, please.
I find it a bit amusing that Councillor Clancy believes that Norfolk County Council are delaying only because they're waiting for a letter from our Managing Director and Councillor Holland. I mean, I'm astonished that this letter is going to have such prominence and make such a change, because that's what he said, we need this letter, we need this letter. So it's as I see it, we've got a county councillor from the ruling group asking the district council, which has no control over this, to write a letter to tell the county council that he sits on as part of the controlling group to move quicker. That's like me phoning up my next door neighbour and asking him to come round and tell me to work harder. I mean, it literally is just, it's utterly bemusing. I think he's got councils mixed up. He needs to be raising this with a motion to his county council to get the county council to act and move on this quickly, because clearly he believes it should be, but instead he wants us to do it. I mean, we talk about vanity projects. It's sort of a vanity motion. I'm sorry.
Councillor Bullman.
I'm sorry that the previous speaker is bemused by this. Can I ask, or is maybe persuade, any councillor who is against this motion to come to Ringland Parish Council, Western Longville Parish Council, spend a couple of days there just watching the traffic, and if they then still say that this project is not needed, then I think basically they should have gone to Specsavers. Without doubt, the parish councils that I represent are desperate for this, and the people who seem to be against it are not affected by it. So of course they can say no. But in any way that you look at this, whether you look at it from convenience, whether you look at it from impact on the environment, impact on the residents, there is not a shadow of doubt in my mind that this Western Link is absolutely needed, and I strongly urge you to support this motion.
Yeah. I'm going to put a personal perspective on this. I'm chair of Taven Parish Council, and I want the Western Link. But this is not the time, this is not the council to decide. It's up to Norfolk County Council. It's not up to Broadland District Council to decide on whether this goes ahead or not. And I think that's the issue. Councillor Roper.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we're in a similar position that we were in July when the Conservative group brought a motion about a highways project, which was one where we'd had a long-established position of support, and for some reason wanted us to reaffirm that position and said it was incredibly...
Councillor Clancy, will you please sit down?
I said it was incredibly important that we reaffirm that position, and we argued at the time that the motion actually didn't count for anything. And to be honest, we were proved right, because the government funding was provided, I think, 2 working days after we voted down the Conservative motion. We're in a similar position now. Council made its position on the Western Link clear when it last discussed the item in March 2022, and it did so with only 4 votes against. I don't see why we need to reopen discussion again, because voting down this motion tonight would in no way negate that previous resolution. The council would still be in favour of the Western Link, and will be until a motion is ever passed to the contrary. Now, I'm a supporter of the Western Link. I vote for it at every single opportunity where it counts, and that is at the county council. I'm in favour of the Western Link. I'm not in favour of this Conservative motion tonight. And I'll tell you why. You know very well that the balance of the council has changed since March 2022, and you know that there are new members who have very honourably have reservations about the project, and indeed have been elected on the basis, a conversation with their electors, and they've been elected in. There is no way you will get this motion passed tonight with only 4 votes against. Not a chance. So the message you are giving to the county council, if you press this to the vote, is that this project has less support now in this chamber than it did in March 2022. And as a supporter of the road, I think that is politically brainless. It is a really foolish thing to do. Why on earth would you reopen the debate when you already have such a massive majority on this council from the earlier resolution? We don't need to go over again and again saying we're in favour. We've done it. We did it in March 2022. So by all means, if you want to press this to the vote tonight, go to County Hall and say, yeah, I tell you what, Broadland passed a motion on the Western Link and we did it with a tiny majority, unlike the big majority we had in March 2022. And I think many words would be said to you by the leadership at the County Hall, and none of them would be thank you. And certainly nobody who is in support of the Western Link would say thank you if you carry on with this foolish motion and bring it to the vote.
Sorry, I have to stop you there.
Thank you.
Roper, sorry. Councillor Murrell, please.
Thank you. Councillor Starling said that things that are outside of our remit we're not supporting, and yet in July we supported the climate emergency, biodiversity emergency, and then at December 23 the administration declared support for the climate and ecology bill, which are not under our remit. No, we have no direct influence on the bill, and yet we've supported it, and yet you're now saying that you can't support this. That's madness.
Councillor Empsall, please.
For me, this is about clarity. Yes. As councillors, as Conservative councillors at this council, we are not sure if the current parties in control are still backing this very important road. Councillor Roper has just said that he is still backing it, which is nice to hear. But as a council, we just need to reaffirm this so that our residents are aware that we're still supporting it. We have seen councillors from the current administration of Broadland support the blocking of the safety improvements to the A47. And that is something which our residents would have concerns about. And I fully understand you said that they were elected in for that reason. I'm unsure that any of the Brundle Blowfield area residents wanted someone to come in and block safety improvements to that part of the A47. It seems crazy. All we're doing is asking that we re-show that Broadland District Council is supportive of the Western Link. I'm in Thorpe St Andrew, I'm on the other side. It's not a part that affects me, apart from when I go over to that side of the city to work, and I find it such a difference from the easy access roads on Thorpe St Andrew side. And I think to myself, why are they not complaining more about not having the new road? And it's just a case of it's unfair for businesses and residents on the west-hand side of the city not to have the same benefits as the eastern side.
I've got Councillor Jones next. Can I? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make the same point that Martin made. We sat there in December and voted on a bill, a government bill, a private member's bill, I may hasten to add, which had nothing really to do with any of us, which none of us had any interest in some ways, but this actually impinges on our residents and our electorate. So it is more of something that we should be talking about than a government bill. Just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Councillor Holland.
Yeah, can I just draw us back to the main point here? The question we've been asked is to express our support for this Norwich Western Link Road. I still come back to the fact this is not something that we need to do. To be honest with you, it's a bit of a waste of time. We've sat here now, it's 9:45. We started this meeting nearly 3 hours ago. I have to say, I think that to continually bring things to this council that actually do not relate to this council, are not a part of our remit, is not really very helpful. I would also like to point out that it's somewhat unusual. Would you mind just waiting till I've finished? Because I think it's a little bit unfair to try to interrupt me. I'd like to point out that I've also received a letter from our MP, Jerome Mayhew, asking me to do the same thing. That's a little bit curious, I think, that I've got two things happening at the same time, both of which are asking me to support something this council has already supported. The point I'm making here, and the point most of us are making here, is the county council have already said they are going to do this. The government has already said it's going to fund it. It's going to fund it to the tune of 85%. I can only assume the county council is quite happy to find the rest. The point about it is not our responsibility. We have no effect on it. The decision has been made by the county council. If what you're concerned about is the fact that they haven't actually got on with it, can I suggest that you go back to the county council and get them to get on with it? Because that seems to me what the main problem is. I'm sorry to say, I will be voting against it again, not because I'm against the road, but simply because I'm against the principle of bringing things to this council for us to vote on, which our decision will make no difference whatsoever. And I would urge the rest of you to vote against as well. Thank you.
Councillor Riley.
Yeah, there's county councillors in the room, Dan Roper, there's Conservative members, yourself, Stuart, and Shearer and others, including myself. I take votes where I'm constitutionally correct to take them, where I've been elected to. So the district council, I'll vote on things that accordingly are in our jurisdiction. This one isn't. I voted at county on this matter. In actual fact, me and Dan Roper voted in exactly the same way. I think it was the second meeting after I was elected it came up. I think it's in Spa down there, Dan. But the real point about this motion is that you always have the determining point in a motion. So the determining point in this motion is at the end, where it usually is, and it states, Managing Director, Leading Managing Director, will write on behalf of Broadland District Council, the leader and Chief Executive of Norfolk County Council, asking that they progress this important infrastructure project urgently to avoid further costly and unnecessary delays. Now, what I suggest to the Conservative councillors that are present, this is your administration that are in control of NCC, as Nick Starling quite rightly pointed out. And I would suggest that if you put your motion in the right place, the county council will have jurisdiction over this. At the next meeting, I, for one, will support it, where I can exercise my vote. But not here today. This is absolute nonsense. And so I'm giving you my support at the county council when you raise your motion, Stuart, as no doubt you will now do at the county council, to try and bring some effect on the leader of the county council and chief executive to expedite the matter. I'll support you at the county council. As far as this is concerned today, of course, we have to reject what is really a non-valid motion.
Thank you. I've got three other councillors who want to speak, and then we're going to draw it to a close. I think we've debated this long enough. Councillor Wymark, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's unfortunate that some people here don't feel that we should argue on behalf of our residents, and that's what this is about. This is about our residents. Pure and simple. Whether people are a county councillor or not is irrelevant. In this place, you're a district councillor, and you're arguing for the people in your district, in Broadland. So in Broadland, people are being impacted every day because this isn't going ahead, or hasn't yet gone ahead. That's the point. But I mean, Councillor Roper made the point about this was supported in 2022. Look around. How many people are here who were here in 2022? It's different. It's a different place. It's a different number of members. I don't understand why the principle has changed. The principle is, are we going to support this and support our residents? Yes, I think is the answer. It should be the answer. I mean, Councillor Roper said, and I paraphrase him, but it was almost exactly to the word, that all Broadland members should support the Norwich Western Link. That's you did, absolutely did. But, so he said that. You absolutely did. I wouldn't have said it otherwise. And so I think that's the same whether it's in Norfolk County Council or here. If we support the Norwich Western Link, we support it. And therefore, writing a letter of support, it says, Broadland District Council, as a body, we add our support to Norfolk County Council with central government. And that's what this argument is about. It's about ensuring that people here, people as a council would say, we support this going ahead. It just adds weight to central government to hopefully get them, well, try and get the other 15% really, ideally, but there we are. So I support this wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Councillor Hartley, please.
Thank you, Chair. At the risk of sounding like a grumpy old woman, which I am, by the way, I am, I know, I'm not denying that. I cannot believe we are wasting time debating this. I really can't. This isn't our business. This is gesture politics. I said it. Can you stop interrupting me, please? I'm going to give you some clarity on the point you made earlier about the climate and ecology bill. That was seeking the clarity that Councillor Emsell raised. It does affect how we run things. That bill was to ask government the whys, the hows. That was the point of that. That is why we allowed it to go through. Yes, it was. That was the details. It wasn't just a, oh, we support this.
Could I ask you just to let Natasha speak, please? Because you've had your turn. Okay.
It's okay, I have a loud enough voice. Thank you. That is different. I am not in favour of gesture politics. I'm not in favour of just flowery words that don't have any context. That bill was asking government to give us the context we needed, that all councils needed to meet the criteria they were setting. That is different to just supporting something blindly or just warmly gesturing towards something. This has nothing to do with us. I'm tired and I'm hungry and I'm sure everyone else is. Can we just vote this nonsense down and go home, please? Thank you.
I'm going to allow one further comment from Councillor Leggett, please.
Thank you, Chair. I obviously support the whole basics behind Councillor's motion on this. And I, of course, remember clearly Councillor Roper speaking very positively this when, as has been repeated by Councillor Holland, that, and I was very pleased to hear this coming from the top table, that the council has supported the Wensum Crossing. But in the media yesterday, it said that the cabinet of Broadland is about to refuse and not support it. And that doesn't help local residents in my patch. And that's why I think it wants to be made clear, because the media is now saying that the Broadland cabinet is not supporting the crossing.
I think we can all understand that we can't believe everything that's in the media. Ken? Right, I'm going to go to the vote, please. Oh, sorry, no, I'm going to... Councillor Copplestone first, please.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. I'm really disappointed about tonight's meeting. The diminution of standards in public life is just progressing further and further. I object to this being called a vanity motion or brainless. I find it incredulous that the Rainbow Alliance will not write in support of the Norwich Western Link. This is essential infrastructure for the economic growth of Broadland. Without it, our residents, especially those living in the north and west of Norwich, in the rural area, will be socially and economically disadvantaged. The narrow lanes which connect the Fakenham Road with the A47 run through the Wensum River Valley, and they lay under deep water during periods of high rainfall. Recently, Ringland was completely flooded, and the roads through Western Longville and Taverham were impassable. We live in a rural county. Many of our residents live in smaller villages and in the countryside. They rely on their cars for transport. They should not find themselves in this intolerable and dangerous situation of a substandard road network. They have waited long enough for this essential road link, and I urge my fellow councillors to support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Clancy to respond, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think there's been some somewhat disingenuous comments and speeches made. This motion, the clarity of this motion is very, very clear. Historically, this council has supported the Norwich Western Link, and this council's support has contributed to the ability for Norfolk County Council to obtain funding for it. Because public bodies like this council, South Norfolk District Council and others are statutory consultees in this process, and their support has been vital for this road. It's really, really simple. And this is not a waste of time because this is supporting all the people which has been mentioned by the councillors on this side of the chamber. I reiterate that basically it says quite clearly, resolves to reaffirm its strong support. Now, as has already been said, this is not the decision-making body, accepted. We do not make the decision on the Western Link, but we are representative of thousands of residents in the Western Fringe parishes who want this route delivered. And as Councillor Empsall has said, and Councillor Copplestone and others, they want clarity that their elected members are very clear at whatever forum, parish, town, district or county are supporting this route. Now that is the very reason I brought this. There's no mischief, it's honesty and integrity of process that this authority is prepared to continue and reaffirm its support. The red herrings about us being a decision maker, we're not accepted. We're not a decision maker, but it's very simple. Put your hand up to support the motion, reaffirm this authority's support, send a strong message to the County Council that we're fully behind the delivery of this scheme. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We're going to go to the vote. Can those members who are voting in favour of this motion please raise your hands? Sorry? You want a recorded vote? Who is in favour of a recorded vote, please? Okay. Claire, over to you again, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Orber.
Against.
Councillor Baby.
Against.
Councillor Beadle.
Against.
Councillor Berry.
For.
Councillor Booth.
Against.
Councillor Bowe.
For.
Councillor Brennan. Councillor Bullman. Councillor Catchpole.
Against.
Councillor Clancy.
For.
Councillor Copplestone. Councillor Crotch. Councillor Douglas. Councillor Eden.
Sorry.
Councillor Empsall.
For.
Councillor Goodman.
Against.
Councillor Gurney. Councillor Hartley. Councillor Harvey.
Against.
Councillor Holland.
Against.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Karina Givenloo.
Against.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Laming.
Against.
Councillor Leggett.
For.
Councillor Mear.
Against.
Councillor Murrell.
For.
Councillor Newstead. Councillor Nurden. Councillor Riley.
Against.
Councillor Roper.
Against.
Councillor L. Starling.
Against.
Councillor N. Starling.
Against.
Councillor Thomas.
Against.
Councillor Tipple.
Against.
Councillor Toval. Councillor Ward.
Against.
Councillor Yusefian.
Against.
And Councillor Wymark.
For.
Just bear with us, it's late in the night. I know it's 22:18, but I just want to double check. Just bear with me. It's 22:18. Thank you.
This motion is lost. Thank you very much for everyone for staying so late, and I declare this meeting closed at 10 o'clock.